Alright, what's up guys? Today we are going to take a look at Bitcoin mining stocks. First, I will cover the S&P 500, then Bitcoin, and finally, the Bitcoin miners. If you go back to previous Bitcoin episodes back in October and November, one thing I stated consistently was that the S&P 500 was going to new all-time highs before the end of 2023. Throw me a bone, I was off by 2 weeks as the S&P 500 hit new all-time highs in the middle of January. I also said that the S&P 500 would most likely top out anywhere between 4,800 and 5,100. Fast forward to today, that's exactly where the S&P 500 is trading at right now. Now, anytime you see a 5-wave move up topping at a cluster of 1.618 Fibonacci retracements and extensions, you have to assume that a 3-wave pullback is coming. On top of that, the S&P 500 usually yields an 8.5% return every year. Over the past 4 months, the S&P 500 is up 25%. In other words, a lot of assets are very overbought and due for a pullback. So in my opinion, over the next few weeks and months, we will see the S&P 500 pull back into the blue Fibonacci retracement support area that spans between 4,200 and 4,600 before continuing to go to new all-time highs. The reason why I am covering the S&P 500 today is because I never gave a bull market top projection on the S&P 500 until today. There are 2 new things I want to introduce. One, the S&P 500 will not go below $4,000 for the foreseeable future. And 2, the bull market top projection will be around the 1.618 Fibonacci retracement at around $6,000. So some of you guys seem to be under the impression that I pull numbers out of my ass, so let's quickly dismiss that. If you take the 1.618 Fibonacci retracement from any 2 extreme pivots, you can use this method to catch significant tops before a major crash like the one we had in March of 2020, where the S&P 500 crashed 30%. Let's repeat the same process. Look at that, the S&P 500 topped out exactly at the 1.618 Fibonacci retracement before crashing 30% again. Fast forward to today. Let's do this one more time. Bam. Okay, so finally moving into Bitcoin. Quick update on Bitcoin. In the last Bitcoin and Ethereum episode, I said once Bitcoin broke above $46,000, Bitcoin would most likely have a shot at $50,000, specifically $51,600, which is pretty much where Bitcoin is trading at today. Bitcoin is now trading at a significant liquidity trend line along with a significant cluster of Fibonacci retracements and extensions. The weekly RSI is at 80 with bearish divergence. Nothing has changed in my mind. As stated before, I believe Bitcoin tops here between $51,000 to $56,000 before crashing back down to $30,000 this year. Now, Bitcoin is doing something it has never done before. And what I mean by that is that if you study the data, Bitcoin, historically speaking, crashes around 30 to 40% every year with no exception. The last time that Bitcoin crashed 30 to 40% was back in late 2022. So it's been over a year now where Bitcoin has not had a 30 to 40% crash. In 2010, Bitcoin crashed 73%. In 2011, Bitcoin crashed 47%. In 2012, Bitcoin crashed 47%. In 2013, Bitcoin crashed 80%. In 2014, Bitcoin crashed 70%. In 2015, Bitcoin crashed 40%. In 2016, Bitcoin crashed 38%. In 2017, Bitcoin crashed 39%. In 2018, Bitcoin crashed 84%. In 2019, Bitcoin crashed 53%. In 2020, Bitcoin crashed 62%. In 2021, Bitcoin crashed 55%. In 2022, Bitcoin crashed 77%. Forget 40%, Bitcoin hasn't even had a 30% crash in over a year now. Now, I assume the majority of people watching this will interpret this as a sign of strength. It's the institutions and the Chinese who are pumping the price of Bitcoin. Listen, you do whatever you want to do. This channel is not financial advice. I am simply showcasing my work and my trades. For me, I don't buy assets when the weekly RSI is at 80. If you are wondering whether you should buy crypto assets today, I'm just going to close things off with this. Nobody cares more about your money than you do. I'm just a man with an opinion, and that opinion is that Bitcoin will crash 30 to 40% this year, back down to $30,000. Okay, so let's move into some Bitcoin miners. Cleanspark stole the show this past week. Cleanspark was the only Bitcoin miner that broke above the December 2023 peak. Out of Riot, Mara, and Cleanspark, as stated before, the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation looked the best for the long-term picture. Now, obviously, a lot of people chased into Cleanspark over the past 2 weeks. Rookie mistake, in my opinion, because they are buying right into the golden window that spans between $12.56 to $21.49. On top of that, they are buying right into the rising wedge trend lines, which will serve as resistance. If Bitcoin retests $30,000, which is about a 40% crash from today's prices, Cleanspark will most likely get crushed. As stated since January, I believe the pre-halving correction will take the first half of 2024 to complete. We are not even 2 months into the new year. Keeping it short and simple, the key level for the bulls to break is at $21.49, which is at the upper bound of the golden window, which I don't believe will happen. What I think is more likely is that Cleanspark stock will go back to single digits. There are a lot of gaps on the Cleanspark stock chart to the downside. Don't forget that 80% of gaps usually get filled. On top of that, if Bitcoin does crash from here, Cleanspark stock is printing bearish divergence on both the weekly time frame and the daily time frame. Notice as the price of Cleanspark stock was making a higher high, the RSI indicator was printing a lower high. Shifting gears to the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation, as stated before, I like this chart the best out of all the Bitcoin miners. The bear markets for the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation held the 1-to-1 fib extension, and the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation printed 2 monthly bullish engulfing candles. If Cleanspark stock does get to $300, which I do believe has a high probability of happening, then the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation must test the red Fibonacci retracement resistance area. It's going to take a while, but I do believe it will eventually get there. Moving into Mara, Mara failed to clear the December 2023 high. Just like what I said in the Cleanspark segment, 80% of gaps get filled, and Mara also has quite a few gaps to fill to the downside. The most recent pump is just another test of the golden window that spans between $23.75 to $41.28. I am not taking Mara too seriously until it pushes above the upper bound of the golden window at $41.28. I believe Mara makes it back down to the price targets in the last episode, which is at around $13. As stated on this channel multiple times, the time to buy cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency stocks was back in 2023. The fact that a lot of people are buying back into cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency stocks suggests to me that this will be a significant top that will lead to a multi-month consolidation phase. People on leverage need to be wiped out before a real bull market begins. Taking a look at the RSI indicator, as stated before, Mara has not had an oversold reading on the daily RSI since October of last year. Everyone has heard of the saying, whatever goes up must come down, and whatever goes down must come up. This applies extremely well to indicators like the RSI. There will be periods where Mara is overbought, followed by periods where Mara is oversold. In 2024, Mara will have an oversold RSI reading. Even when cryptocurrencies were going parabolic in 2021, Mara eventually had an oversold RSI reading. In fact, the oversold RSI reading actually marked the bottom before Mara continued to go to new bull market highs. Shifting gears to the Mara against Bitcoin valuation, the Mara against Bitcoin valuation has been trading sideways for 1,296 days, so the chances that the Mara against Bitcoin valuation breaking to new highs in the foreseeable future is highly unlikely. That being said, when the bull market really takes off after the Bitcoin halving event, the Mara against Bitcoin valuation, just like the Cleanspark against Bitcoin valuation, should test the red Fibonacci retracement resistance area. The longer that this chart continues to drill sideways, the more explosive the move to the upside will be. Don't forget, if this chart pushes higher, that means Mara will outperform Bitcoin when the bull market really takes off. In the short term, I expect the Mara against Bitcoin valuation to continue doing what it's been doing for the past 1,296 days, which is nothing. Taking a look at Riot, Riot seems to be losing favor as more and more people start leading towards Cleanspark and Mara. Personally, I would not skip out on Riot this market cycle. Less than 1 minute ago, I stated that the longer the Mara against Bitcoin valuation continues to trade sideways, the more explosive the breakout to the upside will be. The same concept applies to the Riot stock chart. Riot has been trading sideways for 335 days. That's almost a year of sideways trading. On top of that, Riot is printing what some people would call a symmetrical triangle pattern. I just call it a contracting pattern. The longer price remains coiled inside the contracting pattern, the bigger the breakout to the upside will be. That being said, very similar to Mara and Cleanspark, Riot also has quite a few gaps to fill to the downside. 80% of gaps most likely get filled, so I lean bearish on Riot for the medium-term picture. Okay, let's close things off with the Riot against Bitcoin valuation. As stated in the last episode, I really dislike this chart. Out of all the Bitcoin miners, the Riot against Bitcoin valuation looks the worst. And even with Riot pumping the last 2 weeks, this chart still does not look bullish in my opinion. The Riot against Bitcoin valuation continues to make lower highs and lower lows, and eventually, I do believe the Riot against Bitcoin valuation will test the white trend-based fib extension support area. The reason I bring up these Bitcoin valuation charts is because I know a lot of people like to go all in on one stock. I think when it comes to Bitcoin mining stocks, there are better stocks to go all in on than Riot. Like I said, just my opinion. Okay, so that's my analysis on the Bitcoin miners for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.